Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have one of the most special guests that I've ever had on this show. She's joining us today from Arizona. Her name is Sara O'Meara. She has the most amazing story, the most amazing spirit and heart of anyone that you'll ever meet. So if you would do me a favor and please, no matter where you're watching this from, share this out to everyone that you know, and let's get as many people on here to be blessed today by hearing Sara's story. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Sara O'Meara. And we're back. Let me bring Sara on. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. I'm so happy to be here with you.
It is such an honor. People that are watching do not understand yet, but they will. It is such an honor to have you on here. It's a privilege. And I'm very, very grateful. And I'm grateful that you got over the little hiccups we've had here in the last couple of months or so, and you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Sara, I started this show almost 6 years ago, and it was really to help. I was being selfish. I thought if I hear enough other people tell me how they got through the hard times in life, then maybe I'll figure it out and I'll get unstuck, and it worked. So, I love to start with you kind of sharing with everyone where you were born and raised, where it all started for you.
I was raised and born in Knoxville, Tennessee. And today we have Childhelp, very, very prevalent in that, in my hometown of Knoxville and beyond, all over Tennessee. So it has been in my heart and stayed there, even though I did not live there. I went away to college and then lived in California. So I've never been back to live there, but it's very deeply embedded within my soul.
We love Tennessee. Absolutely love Tennessee. It's such a beautiful state. So talk about like when you grew up in Knoxville, you graduated high school there. Is that where you went to high school?
I did. Yes.
Okay. And then did you go to college?
Yes, I went to college in New York, and then from there, the Sorbonne in France, and that's where I graduated.
Wow. Okay. What was your degree in?
It was in drama, believe it or not. I was going to teach drama at the University of Tennessee. Those were my plans. But instead, this college I went to, the Sorbonne, did not have a specific course in directing that I had to have for that teaching job. So I went to the Pasadena Playhouse in Pasadena, California. And it was there an agent saw me in a play and asked if I would try my luck at acting. And of course, that sounded a lot more exciting than being a teacher. And so I remember calling my parents and saying, may I stay here? Those were the days that you did that you called your parents to say, may I? And so my father said, I'll make a deal with you. I will give you money for your pictures that you have to have for your acting. I will get you a car. I will get you an apartment for 6 months. But if you haven't made it, you're coming home. They did not think too much of Hollywood at that time. You can imagine now, but that time. And so, 6 months when you're young sounds like forever. So I said, okay, that's a deal, Daddy. And I was so fortunate because I received as my first gig, so to speak, a on the Ozzie and Harriet show, a running part playing
Oh my.
David's girlfriend. Well, those of listening to the broadcast now, they're much too young to know of Ozzie and Harriet, but it was a long running family show. And so from there, that was where I met Yvonne Fedderson, which we have had a life together, which I'm sure we'll talk about a
Yeah.
little later.
Yeah.
But we became fast friends from that moment because she too was on the Ozzie and Harriet show. Neither of us were married at the time. And so that was where my life began as an actress.
Ozzie and Harriet. My gosh, that brings back memories. I am not, and look, my wife is on here. She loves your book too. She studied in France as well in college. She didn't
Really?
graduate, but she went to France to study. I think it was language or French or whatever her major was. I never can remember. But yeah, she says the quintessential American show, Ozzie and Harriet, really
Yes.
was. Yeah. So what happened with your acting career after Ozzie and Harriet? How that was on for a long time, wasn't it?
Yes, we were on for several years, but um, then we did other shows too. Yvonne, actually, her career had begun long before mine, and she did a movie with Elvis Presley and dated Elvis. And so we, what happened next really brought us to our mission, Ken. Uh, the acting was only a prelude to what really was going to happen in our life, but little did we know that at the time, of course.
Right.
But we were selected out of 500 applicants to represent America on a goodwill type tour to entertain our troops to Korea, Okinawa, and Japan. And everybody wanted that particular show because you traveled as a general, which was GS 16. Well, we had done a lot of USO shows, and let me tell you, you don't travel as a general. So that was why everybody wanted this. And the amazing thing is, we were the two chosen out of the 500, and we did not go on the same day. They did not even know we knew each other. So, of
Wow.
course, we thought we were the greatest actresses that ever lived to think that we were chosen out of all those people.
Right.
And the general that met with us afterwards to explain about the tour, the first thing out of his mouth is, now I want you girls to know this had nothing whatsoever to do with your acting ability, nor that you are too beautiful. So, of course, our egos went from here to here. And,
Right.
and we said, well, why were we chosen? And he said, because you're typically looking American girls, and we want our troops to understand what they're missing to come back to you, because they're
Yeah.
getting involved with the women, particularly on radar sites, which are far from major cities. And we want you to entertain, talk to them. We'll even give you a script of some of the things we'd like for you to say, so that
Wow.
they will think, boy, I'm waiting until I get home for my girlfriend or whomever I will meet. So
Yeah.
that was what we were originally there for. Well, we hit the typhoon season in Japan, in Tokyo, and we were not supposed to go outside of the hotel. They had a flag up that you were not supposed to leave. Well, we were young and we were very antsy, and we said, let's sneak out. So we went to the basement of the hotel and walked out to see the devastation that occurred from the typhoon. And in so doing, found 11 children huddled together to fend off the cold. It was the coldest winter they'd ever had on record. They did not have any jackets or shoes, and they were a pitiful sight, some of them crying. They ranged from 2 to 8 years of age.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we said, where do you belong? Why are you here? And they could not understand us because of our English, nor we they, except they said, no mama sign, no papa sign. So we knew they were orphans some way, or had some way had gotten loose from their parents. We didn't know what,
Wow.
but we took them back to our hotel room, gave them a hot bath, fed them, and then approached the colonel who traveled with us and was assigned to us and said, "We have these children in our room upstairs of the hotel. We were staying in a military hotel, and we need to find a home for them." And he said, "You have what?" And when we told him, he had a fit. He said, "I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it." He said, "You can't imagine the paperwork it costs." He said, "You find them a home." And we said, "Well, we will, but will you help us get a list of orphanages so we can find them a place to live?" And he said,
Right.
"Well, I'll do that." And he did. And we got a cab on the base. We put all the children in it, went from orphanage to orphanage, and the story was always the same. They were overcrowded and they could not take the children. There was nothing to do but to bring them back to our hotel, sneak them in, and have them spend the night in our room.
Wow.
So we tipped the maids in order to get all kinds of things for us, to Tommy mats for the floor and food and everything, and started out the next morning. The cab driver got all involved with us. He knew we were trying to help the children. And uh, that next morning we started again. And then the children began to cry in unison when we approached a specific orphanage. We didn't know
Mm,
why. They kept holding back. They didn't want to go up with us to the front door as we usually did, with the
wow.
cab driver as our interpreter. And it turned out it was because they had been turned out of that particular orphanage because of one thing, Ken. They were half American, half Japanese, and
Wow.
they were children without a country because the Japanese said, "They're not ours." And America said, "Well, they're not ours." And so they were children literally without a birth certificate.
Wow.
So it gave us the fortitude to go to that colonel and say, "Listen, these children that you're looking at are ours, and we're not turning them out on the street. We have a show to do this tonight.
Wow.
You have to help us." And he gave us a name of a man named Dr. Hugh Morton, who was director of Tokyo Gospel Missions. And Dr. Morton was ready to go back to the United States because he had dual citizenship and had to come back to the States. He was packed, ready to go. And as we opened the door to his home where he would take some of these children, he said, "You know, you're the only ones that have ever stopped to take care of these children." He
Wow.
said, "You can find them in garbage cans, you can find them everywhere." But he said, "The only thing I can do is introduce you to this Christian woman who has taken in half American children, but she only lives in a meager little home. Her name was Mama Ken, and we took them to Mama Ken." Well, Mama Ken's place was a hut,
Wow.
literally. It had no front door, no window panes. But as you looked in that open door, you could see two rooms. One room on which she was cooking on hibachi some food. The other room, the children were gathered around uh, to try to keep warm. And we asked if she would take our children. And she said, "I don't have the money to take care of these children." And
Wow.
she pointed, I'll never forget it. She pointed to a nail on the wall that had a worn jacket. And she said, "Those of school age have to take turns to go to school because it's the only jacket we have." We had never seen poverty like that.
Wow.
So we talked her into believing that we would come back. If she would take our children, we would come back with money, and we would not only take care of ours, but that we found, but take care of the ones that she had, for she had 10 herself. So we
Oh
became
my
infant mama sons of 21 children.
Wow.
That night, we did a show for the servicemen, and we said, let us tell you about our day. And we told about finding them. And then we said, you have to help us because some of these might be yours. And so they showed up in mass the next morning at our hotel with stolen army blankets, with with rations, with everything you could think. And we went to this little place and we built on a little tiny orphanage, but it had a front door, it had window panes, and the children were fed. We went to an open air market, Yvonne and I, with some of the servicemen, and we bought clothing. And we thought, God wants us to take care of these 21 children. And we will. We'll keep sending money over, and the children at those days would wear uniforms to school. And I remember our saying, we'll buy uniforms for them so they won't feel out of place. And we had the whole thing planned until everyone heard that we would take these half American children. So they left them on our doorstep and
Oh my goodness.
and down the street with notes pinned on them for the orphanage of mixed blood. So we became an orphanage overnight. We came back to the States and we started International Orphans Incorporated. And we got our friends together at that time. Some of our closest friends were Debbie Reynolds and Connie Stevens and some other actors and actresses that aren't known today, but they were in those days. And we would put on shows and raise money. And we started, and then we both married and had our own children, but we kept up. We had built 4 orphanages for the half American child in Tokyo. Wow. So that was the beginning of our real mission in life.
So when you, I just out of curiosity, because, I have my wife saying love Debbie and Connie. My wife loves old black and white movies. Like that's her thing. So when you had your own children, one might think that you went, okay, now I have these children that are mine that I have to take care of and provide for and give love to and all of that. It didn't become a second thought. The orphans didn't, it still was part of your everything.
Oh yes, because we knew that this was a mission God had given us.
Wow.
And it was in our whole being that these children too were ours. Yeah. And
wow.
But we thought that was going to wind down, that our troops, the war was different and so forth. So we thought that would wind down. But actually the Congress called and said, we'd like to give you an award for what you've done because you haven't asked us for help and you have taken it on yourself, and we would like to honor you. Well, Yvonne and I didn't even know that Congress knew anything about it. And we were on the plane saying, isn't that just wonderful that we're being an order? And all of a sudden, one of us thought, and we said, you don't think they're going to ask us to go into Vietnam, do you? And I said, no. Then I said, well, you know what? They might. And we said, we better write a really nice decline. So while we have the time, let's write it. So we spent our whole trip writing how we would say, we're very honored that you would think of us, but we just can't do it. We have our families now, blah, blah, blah. Well, we went to Congress, we got the award, and sure enough, they asked us, it was General Green, Commandant of the Marine Corps, that was sitting there and said, ladies, we need you, but we will help you this time. We are going to appoint General Lewis W. Walt, head of the 3rd Marine Amphibious Force that's in Vietnam, to select orphanage sites, and you build it like you did in Tokyo. You
Wow.
tell us how to help these children, and we will help you do it, but we need you. They showed us the most pitiful pictures of these children. We still have them on our walls in our headquarters today.
Wow.
And we didn't even look at each other, and we both said, we'd love to. We got back on the plane and we said, what have we done? We're
Oh,
keeping up 4 orphanages, and now we're having to build more. But
wow.
we got the Marine Corps Reserve Officers Association and the Navy League to help us, and we put on fundraisers. And anyway, we ended up building 5 orphanages in Vietnam, a school for
Jeez.
orphans, and a hospital for orphans. So
Oh my goodness.
here we were now taking care of 9 orphanages, a hospital, and a school. And when General Walt would come over for our major fundraisers, and so, which was a big thing, and the servicemen like McCrow, Marine Corps Reserve Officers Association, loved it that he would come, and they would attend and support it really because of him, a lot of them. But
Yeah.
General Walt said to me, Sarah, I want you to know that I might be calling you very soon, that we're going to be pulling out of Vietnam, because the president called me recently and said that it looked like that. So we don't want you to send over any money. I said, that will never happen. Well, of course it did. He called me and
Wow.
said, we're having to leave, and don't send over any checks or anything. They will land in the Viet Cong hands. So I said, well, what about the children? They'll be killed because of the American blood. And he said, now don't start on me. He was a big teddy bear. He loved the children.
Yeah.
But he had these men to get out, thousands of
Right.
men.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the children, and it was touching his heart, but he could, he didn't know what to do. So
Right.
I couldn't sleep that night. And Yvonne and I got on the phone, and we said, you know what? Congress got us into this, and we're going to call them, and they're going to have to go in and get those children for us out, because they'll be killed. That was the beginning of the Vietnam baby lift. Maybe you'll remember that, but I don't know.
Wow. I don't remember that, but wow.
Yeah. And we brought
Wow.
thousands of children to the
Oh
States.
my gosh.
We even got some of the World Airlines stepped in and helped us. And we
Wow.
got children that went everywhere. They went all over the United States, actually. We had things set up through the bases where they would accept the children. What we did is, we were not an adoption agency at the time. We are now in a couple of states, but we were not then. And we would call and say, do you have parents that have already been okayed? Because we have the children tomorrow that will be landing a plane in Seattle or wherever it was. And if they will take them, we have the child. Do you know that every single child was adopted when they hit our soil? If
Oh
that
my
doesn't speak
gosh.
well for America, I don't know what does, because every
Wow.
single child was adopted. And so now, Ken, for sure, we thought our mission had been completed. We had built the orphanages, the orphanages were
Right.
grown, and everything. And we were asked all over the place to make speeches about the Vietnam baby lift.
Yeah.
We were making a speech in California at the old Ambassador Hotel there at an event. And the Reagans were there, Nancy and Ronnie.
Yeah.
And they were sitting on the dais with us. As we came back from our speech, Nancy put her arm out and stopped us and said, you two are just the ones to do it. And we said, do what? And she said, child abuse in this country. She
Oh
said,
my
do you
gosh.
know that the laws are protecting the perpetrator, not the child? And said, we don't know 2 people that can go in unpopular issues. You did it with an unpopular war. You did it with unpopular problems of mixed blood children. And now we need you to do this. I said, we've never heard of abused children in America, Mrs. Reagan. And she said, I promise you it's happening. And you're the tube to do it. And I said, well, we'd have to do a feasibility study. And I thought she'd lost it. I thought, if she because you never read anything. Never.
Wow.
Abused children. Never.
Wow.
And so when she looked at Ronnie and she said, I think we can get that money, don't you? And winked. And Ronnie said, yep. And do you know the next morning a personal check was delivered at my door to start the feasibility study.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there wasn't anything to do but to do it, right?
Oh my goodness.
Now we're the largest nonprofit in America dealing with abused children and a very large continuum of services across the United States. That was because of the Reagans who planted the very first monies for us to study the problem to find out indeed she was correct and how bad it was. Wow. And so we started by changing laws and from there building facilities and starting other programs that have progressed over the years. So that's where we ended up.
Okay, so, and everybody watching, there's a lot of people watching right now. Everybody watching can go to childhelp.org. I have to can I share the story that
Absolutely.
So my wife and I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, we were walking into a steakhouse one night, and there's Childhelp out there. They're asking for donations for backpacks and all of this stuff. And so I signed up. I gave them, I think, $160 that night. And then I did the monthly $30 a month to help. And then I fast forward a year or so later, and my card number had changed. I just didn't renew. So we are walking into, my wife and I what was it, 3 months ago, we're walking into, here, my wife just put the link in the comments. We're walking into our favorite barbecue place here in Texas. And there's Childhelp again. These two younger people are out there helping, get donations. And so I said, oh my gosh, I did it before. I supported it for quite a long time. And they're like, oh, thank you. And so we went in and ate. And I'm like, okay, I don't know that I want to get back on the monthly thing, but I might. We'll see on the way out. On the way out, there's one girl left there. The guy had gone home. I said, where's your partner? She goes, he hit his goal for the night, so he got to go home. And I said, oh, what do you have left to get your goal so you can go home? And she said, $200. And I looked at my wife and I said, give her the $200 so she can go home. Pardon me. And so she did, and took pictures, and it was nice. And that was all that was it. We walked away and never thought another thing about it. I love the organization and what you guys do. 3 days later, my phone rings, and it's Mark Victor Hansen calling me. And he says, Ken, my boy, I want you to have my friend Sara O'Meara on your show. And I said, okay, who's Sara? And he goes, well, she's the co-founder of childhelp.org. I'm like, shut up. Are you serious right now? This can't be real. This is not happening. And so I told him, and then I'm telling my wife later, I said, you're not going to believe the call I got today. I tell her, she literally bursts into tears. She's like, you got to be kidding me. And so it's just amazing the way God works in this world, and especially in this organization. My goodness. And you are, how do you, I mean, it sounds to me like you just don't say no. Like,
well, if God says no, it's over. I give all the credit, and so does Yvonne, to God, because we dedicated this organization from the beginning to Him. We were not educated at all in child psychology or child anything.
Right.
And so we loved children. We both loved children, but who doesn't? But
Right.
it was nothing that we were prepared for, but God prepared us for it. He opened the doors. We didn't know anybody in that field. And so when you think of what He has done, I mean, God can do anything, of course, and He did that. And this is His organization. And
That's
we have been
amazing.
able to help close to 13 million children since its inception. And that's all because of Him, Ken. And that's the truth.
Amen. I love that. And I don't want to shift gears too quick because we're going to keep childhelp.org at the forefront of all of this. But there's and by the way, I have your book on the thing here. You've got to go get a copy of this book. Go to Amazon or wherever, and it's called Healed. Your Miracle Awaits by Sara O'Meara with the Mark Victor Hansen Library, actually. Such an amazing book. I mean, just an amazing book. I have this one. I have the Kindle version. Go get a copy of it. Maybe my wife will put a link to it in the comments if she can find it on Amazon real quick. But or is it on childhelp.org? Is the book?
No, it isn't connected really to childhelp.org. There's in the back of it, there's a little bit about child help, some of the things that have been accomplished through
and
that.
Kathy Lee Gifford is on the wow. It's crazy. Like you were friends with Danny Thomas too.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable. So where is there a website though that was on? I thought I saw a website link somewhere, but
there's a website, thelittlechapelaz.org, that tells this is another part of my whole life, which is the Little Chapel, and I have services once a month, a healing service. Yeah. So that's another whole avenue.
Yeah, I want to, and I do want to go down that path actually, if we can, because the I'm trying to get. I want to scroll, and it's chapelaz.org, the littlechapelaz.org.
Right.
I'm going to scroll this across the bottom so people can go check it out and get a copy. Do I have that spelled correctly? I think I do. I'm doing this on the fly here. Okay.
Yes, you do.
So go check it out and grab a copy of this book. It's an amazing book, but I do want to get into, I had the amazing experience and benefit of having your daughter tell me the story. And you were there in the background while Taryn was telling me the story on the phone about the healing that occurred in your life. And I would absolutely love to have you tell that story if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all, because I wouldn't be here if it were not for that story.
It's
when
powerful.
I was 36 years old, and it was when we were just opening our very first village, actually, for child help in California. And I was told after the operation that I had so much cancer in my body, in every gland on my left hand side, that they could not get it all. And that they told my friends, Yvonne and then her husband, Don Pedersen, that if I lived 3 months, that would be a long time with the condition I was in.
Wow.
That was very hard for me to understand, because I had 2 children at the time that I was raising by myself. And we were just starting to build fantastic programs for children that have been abused. And now I'm told I won't live. As I was in the hospital hearing that, on the television set came a woman, a voice that says, I believe in miracles because I believe in God. And that was Catherine Kuhlman, known as to this day, the most famous. They call her a healer. She doesn't heal, God does, but they call her the most famous healer of any time, of any period, of any date. And indeed she was. I had never been to anything like that. I thought it was like a holy roller type thing where people put up.
Right.
And so when she said, if you need a miracle, you be at the Shrine Auditorium this Sunday. God can heal you. Well, I knew that I had to be there. I didn't care if it was a tent. I didn't care what it was. I was going to be there. Well, I wasn't supposed to get out of the hospital for 4 more days. And this was on a Friday, and I had to talk the doctor into letting me out Saturday so that I could be there Sunday. So I told him that it was urgent I get home. I had plenty of help, I said, to help me. That was not really so. And he said, you will bleed to death, because that's when they didn't have stitches. They had clamps that they put on you when you open up. And he said, you will bleed to death if you get up to go to the bathroom. I did cross my fingers underneath the blanket. I really did that, but I lied. I said, okay, I promise. Well, I knew I was going to be there at that Shrine Auditorium on Sunday. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I was going to be there. So I called the Shrine Auditorium and I said, I am very, very ill, and I cannot stand in the line that I saw on television where people were standing to get in the Shrine Auditorium, but I need to be there. Is there room for those that are in my condition? And the man said, well, actually there is. You have to go through a certain door. You have to be there at a certain time. And so he put my name on the list.
Yeah.
I was there right at the time he told me. I was there at the door with my friend, Janet, that took me. And as I knocked on the door to get in, she was parking the car and going to come back and meet me. They said, we're sorry. It's filled and we can't have one more person because of the fire department. So you're going to have to leave. And of course, my hope, you build up your hope.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it that I couldn't get in. So I walked out to the curb to meet my friend that would join me.
Yeah.
And as she stepped up on the curb to join me, somebody else recognized me through Childhelp and said, Sara, what in the world are you doing here? And I said, well, I don't feel well. And I'd hoped to be there, but it's filled. And she said, you know what? I came out to my car to get a sweater. It's kind of cool in there. But I'm going to give you my seat, and I'm going to ask my husband to get up to give your friend his. Well, usually I would have been nice enough to have said, oh, no, but I didn't. I said, oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Where she was sitting, you would not believe it. She was sitting in the very top balcony on the last row.
Oh my
gosh. There,
gosh.
you had to walk all these steps, and they didn't have an elevator up to the balcony. So you had to walk those steps plus up to the last balcony.
Wow.
As I looked down, I realized I was stepping in my own blood, and I was bleeding pretty badly. As I sat down, the two seats. One was on the end of the aisle, the next one to it. And as I sat down, I was so exhausted and I had lost a lot of blood.
Mm.
And as I sat down, my body lifted up to the top of the ceiling. I was in like a pink cloud.
Wow.
And I was floating in the pink cloud. However, when Catherine spoke, I did not hear the words she said, but I knew she was talking. And I knew that the choir was singing. So it's not anything that impressed me by what was said. I was still floating up there. And then I realized either I'm dying or I'm hallucinating.
Wow.
About that time, what I did hear is there's a marvelous healing going on up in the balcony. It's a girl that's riddled with cancer throughout her body.
Oh my God.
At that point, I came out of the cloud, came plowing in my seat. You know, I was there the whole time.
Right.
And as I got down into my seat, it's like the cloud dissipated and I was in a state of shock. And then something that had never happened to me before was the Holy Spirit was going through my body so strongly that it not only shook me, but the entire row where I was sitting was knocked down sideways.
Oh my goodness.
I did not know any of that because I was up here someplace, sort of.
You already had thought that this was some holy roller convention.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but at that point,
Right.
I really didn't know what it was. And
Right.
so, what I was thinking was, what is happening to me? Dear God, what is happening to me? At that point, Catherine came back and she said, this healing going on in the balcony, this girl has been saved for a very special purpose. And she's sitting on in the last balcony of the first row in a red dress.
Oh
Well,
my
I
goodness.
had a red, white, and blue dress on, predominantly red. But I mean, there was no mistake. And so
Right.
the ushers came kneeling down by me and they said, aren't you the one being healed? And I said, I think so, duh, you know. And so they said, well, go down and give your testimony. I said, because I'd never been to anything like that. I said,
Right.
oh, I don't know about that. And when I said that, a voice said to me, like I'm talking to you, Ken, you mean I would do that for you and you would deny me?
Wow.
It scared me. I jumped up so fast. And as I did, it was like hot oil. Of course it wasn't, but it felt like hot oil coming all over me. But as I
Wow.
did, it was like one of those dolls that you push, you know, that was like that and they come up. I
Yeah.
was like that. And when I was and stepped out to the aisle, everybody was turning around looking. But I didn't care because
Wow.
all the pain had left me.
Oh my
The
goodness.
bleeding stopped. I flew down those steps. Now I was in the back of the aisle because she's up here, I'm here. And I said, now God, I'm here. You see, I'm here, but I'll never make it up there because other people were healed and they were anxious to get
Right.
up there. And so they were blocking the aisle. And I said, I'll never. She came to the side of the podium on stage and she pointed and she said, the girl in the red dress in the very, very back, the Holy Spirit is all over you. You come forward and tell us what God did for you today. Well, it was like the parting of the Red Sea. I mean, there was nothing to do but go. And so I
Right.
walked up and I did. I told everything. I told about the cloud. I told everything.
Wow.
So then she said to the usher, unbeknownst to me at the time, I want her phone number. Uh, See if you can get her phone number. They did. When I went home, my skin had healed up over the clamps. Healed up over the clamps. The
Oh
clamps
my
were there.
gosh.
They didn't dissolve, but my skin had healed up.
Oh
Well, I was
my
supposed to be at the
gosh.
doctor's office on Monday morning with the inhibits they were taking me. The doctor actually happened to be a friend of Don Pedersen. So he had me come in before his other patients because he was very concerned about laying me out of the hospital in the first place.
Yeah.
He came tearing out of the examining room and said, "You have the kookiest friend I've ever seen. Her skin has healed up over the clamps."
Oh my gosh.
He retook the test and found no cancer.
Wow.
So that changed
Wow.
my entire life.
Oh my
I
gosh.
loved God before. I was a Sunday school teacher. I always, I, you would say I was kind of religious, but this changed my life.
Wow.
And then as Catherine called me and said, I want you to be on my television program with me. Well, here I didn't want to go up to the Shrine Auditorium and get in. She wants me to be on national TV. I did. We became friends. I um, she ended up asking me to work with her at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, which I did. I
Wow.
organized all the ushers and everything for her. I ended up. She put me in the really bad area of where people were dying and on stretchers and in wheelchairs. And it was there that I was able to see a light around the person just before she called out a healing of
Oh my
that person.
gosh.
And I
Wow.
told her, Catherine, would you think I was crazy? But I know before you call it out who is going to be healed. And she threw up her hands and she said, it's just the beginning, just the beginning. Well, we went to Israel together and
Wow.
we were having lunch. And when we were having lunch, she said, Sarah, it hasn't dawned on your consciousness yet, but you have the same gift that God gave me for healing.
Wow.
I was so dumb that I said, yes, isn't that wonderful? Thinking it was the healing for the children, because that's what it is to heal abused children.
Sure. Sure.
So, in a different light, but it was healing me. When we got back from Israel, she died within weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Surprise to everybody. We were all heartbroken. After that, Yvonne and I tried to find others who had healing abilities, and we did go to healing services, but never felt quite the same depth of the Holy Spirit as we did with Catherine. Until Danny Thomas called me. You're speaking of Danny. And he said, Sarah, I have someone sitting in my living room visiting Rosemary and me, and he's staying in our house, and he's looked everywhere for you. And it's Father Ralph Diorio.
Oh my
I
gosh.
said, why would he look for me? And she said, because he has a tremendous gift of healing, like Catherine. Everybody said what a shame it was that he didn't meet her. And everyone told him, if you really want to find out about her, get in touch with a girl named Sara O'Meara. Well, I'm not
Mhm.
listed in the phone book. He couldn't find me. He didn't know about Childhelp. He was lost until Danny said she's a good friend. So
Oh
I
my
went over and
gosh.
had dinner with them. Father Diorio and I talked like magpies the whole dinner. And he said, I want you to take me to the airport tomorrow morning. Come by and we'll have prayer together tomorrow morning and I'll give you Eucharist. And I thought, oh my gosh, he thinks I'm Catholic because my name's Sara and I'm Protestant. So I said, well, Father, thank you. And I would like to take you to the airport and continue our conversation, but I don't happen to be Catholic. And he said, well, what difference does that make? I said, well, none to me, but I thought it would be to you. He said, you be here. So I was there, and that was the start of a whole new relationship. He said at the time to me when he left the car to get on the plane, I don't know how, but we'll be working together someday. And I thought, boy, I don't know how either, because you live in Massachusetts, I live in California, you're Catholic
Right.
and I'm Protestant. So I
Right.
went home thinking nothing about it. And he called that day and evening, and he said, my bishop met me at the airport telling me he was sending me back to California to do a series of services. And he said, I told him I would like you to do what you did for Catherine and get the ushers together and organize it and blah, blah, blah. And he said that would probably be hard to do because you weren't Catholic and you would be behind the Eucharist and whatever. And but he would pray about it. The next day he called and he said, do you know that the bishop called me that morning and said you'd be okay? And so I began working with him when
Wow.
he came to California. Then he kept asking me to join him at a lot of different things that he did.
Yeah.
His healing services, workshops, and so forth. And I did all over. We went to New York. We were in Massachusetts. We were everywhere. And we did healing services together. And then
Wow.
he played a trick on me. At a service, it was a workshop. He had 500 people. And he said, all those that have come here and have not received a healing, that came for a healing, I want you to stand over here and I'll pray for you individually. And Sara O'Meara will stand on the other side of the podium and she'll pray for you. Well, I rushed up to him and said, Father Diorio, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. That's like dirt and ice cream. I said, they don't know me. And I'm arguing with him. And he tells the ushers, take her over there. Well, I stood there and I prayed. Ken, I said, God, don't let anyone be in my line. I can't do anything for them. Don't let anybody. And then I got my wish. Everybody was in his line and nobody was in mine. And then I looked up and I said, well, maybe one. And so, because I was so embarrassed, I stood there for a long time. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
at the
It's
very end was a man about 6'5". And he was leaning over, talking obviously to his family, wife, and there were two kids. And here he came. And I said, oh no, here he comes. He thinks I can do something. He stood in front of me and he said, will you pray for me? And I said, what's wrong with you, sir? And he said, I have an inoperable tumor. And it was as big as a lemon. I mean, you
oh my
couldn't miss it.
gosh.
And so I put my hand on his chest and I couldn't think of a prayer. I was so nervous. So I said, dear God, heal this man. Well, it was enough because his children started screaming, look at Papa, look at Papa. And I looked up because my eyes flew open and I got to see it go down. That was the first healing
Oh my
that God
gosh.
ever allowed to work through me. And then a whole group came from the back thinking they couldn't get up to Father Diorio. And they came over to my line and I prayed for a little under 2 hours,
Oh
and
my
about
gosh.
80% of them were healed. That began my healing gift. And so that was
Wow.
51 years ago.
Oh
And
my
since
gosh.
then, I won't go into how, but I have had two chapels, one in California. And when I moved to Arizona, we now have it in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I wrote this book healed. Your miracle awaits. It has been voted #1 on Amazon. And let me tell you about this book. I had no idea that it would affect people this way. I really didn't. But people are being healed in reading it.
Yeah.
They don't even, they're not, they have come, yes, to the little chapel. I've had people come from Europe and all over the United States and still do. There's nothing like being there, of course, but many people have written to tell me that they are healed. Because you see, I don't do the healing.
Right.
I'm not the healer. God is. And God is everywhere. It depends. Yes.
I'm sorry. I have a question though. So you said 80% in that day, about 80% were healed. The 20% that weren't, I know everybody asks. I'm going to ask why. Why were they? And I think about Peter walking on the water, and then losing faith and sight and or whatever, and starting to sink. And is it that? Is it because they don't believe that it's possible?
Well, I tell you, Ken, if I knew the answer, I'd be God. Only God heals. He makes the decision. I will tell you that sometimes the people that are closest to me, relatives, are not healed.
Wow.
But people I'll never see. I have not a clue of their name, where they came from, are healed of cancer, of all kinds of things. I don't have the answer, and nobody else does really, because it's God's call. It's not mine. I pray the same for everyone.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes why. I'll tell you a story that happened at my very last service. We had so many healings of backs and knees, people that now do not have to have knee surgery. They've canceled it. They're fine. And my son stood up for a healing of his hip. It had been bothering him for many months. He was the only one in the entire service not healed that stood up. In fact, when he stood up and I said, "Would you walk toward me? Do you have any pain?" He said, "Yes, it's still there." I said, "Well, you're a bad advertisement for me." You're my son. But the thing is, I don't know the ones that will be healed. I pray for them. Sometimes a lot I pray for a specific person, especially if I've known them a long time and know their story.
Yeah.
But it's not my call, Ken.
Yeah.
It's God. But I will tell you this, according to Scripture, right now we are in a period where more healings are going to take place than any other. So watch out if you're asking God for your miracle. Don't think he won't give it to you, because he's opening up a big door. If you read the Holy Scripture, you'll find that to be true about what he's doing for today's world. I think what is a magnet for healing is trust and faith. If we trust and have faith in him, he tells us nothing is impossible with God. He tells us he has a plan for each and every single one of us. And everyone is so precious to him, so unique, that it's like you were the only child on earth. That's how much he loves you. We don't understand a love like that.
Right.
If he loves us all that much, he wants us to be free from suffering, free from illness. I've had illness and problems and suffering. I'm not I'm not always healed when I ask to be healed. But you know what? We learn a lot between the time that we're asking God to heal us and the time He actually does. There are more progressive healings than instantaneous ones.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of what we learn in the in between times, because there's no other place to go but on your knees.
Mm.
And so you become closer and closer to God, and you rely on Him because you realize that's the only other place you have to go.
Wow.
You've tried every doctor, you've tried everything, but God's power is in work within us. Right now, as I'm talking, right now, there are like 4 people that are getting healed of their hip. When I talked
Wow.
about my son's hip, I I was
Wow.
told 4 people are being healed right now. As I
Wow. Wow.
so God loves us all beyond our wildest imaginations. And He is there for us always, always. And if we can just let go and give Him control of our life, it would be so much better than our own plans. His plans so far exceed ours, it's ridiculous.
You
So
s- you say it in your book. You said, and I've heard it many times, but if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans,
that's right.
right? Like I think so many of us, including me, I'm a recovered alcoholic with 22 and a half years sober by the grace of God.
Wonderful.
And I always give credit to God. People are like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "I did, trust me, I didn't. That is not my natural state." And then I think about the people that don't survive, that don't make it, that die of
I
alcoholism or
know.
drug addictions, and I just go, I don't know why. I surrendered. I don't know. I really don't. And it sounds like it's the same.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. And I don't have all the answers at all.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have any of those answers of why some are healed and some are not. Because I would, if I could, I'd go in the hospitals and just drain everybody out of those beds.
Yeah.
But it is God's call. And God, there is a book, by the way, that Yvonne wrote called Healing God's Call. And it's of documented testimonies that have been healed in the little chapel as a
Wow.
result of being there. But I just I just feel that those listening today, many of you are really going through a hard time. And many of you are sick. And miracles sound so far away, and that God will never heal you. But that's not true. That's not what He tells us. And He's proven it. I want you who are listening and call and are in that category to call on Jesus now and ask for that healing and believe that He's giving it to you. And don't let anything take it away. Stand firm. You can find many, many verses in the Bible that will substantiate what I'm saying.
Mm.
And you can say them over and over and over again. And that
Wow.
healing is there for you. Please know that. It's there for you and it's there for you now, just as we're speaking these words. That's what I
Wow.
want to leave you with.
Sarah, God bless you. You're amazing, and I'm so honored to have had you on the show today.
I'm honored to
Everybody, thank you so much. I want everybody watching or listening to this at a later date. Please go to childhelp.org and give. Just donate, even if it's $5. If a million people gave $5, that would help a lot. Um, right, and go to the littlechapelaz.org, um, and help. in every way that you possibly can. And if you don't get this book, you are missing out, I promise you. Go get this book today, Healed, Your Miracle Awaits. It's an amazing, amazing book. So God bless you. Thank you so much, Sara.
Thank you, Ken, and God bless you and all those that are listening.
I'm
My
blown away.
services are streamed every time.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So, and that can be found at the littlechapelaz.org. You can see the services. I know some people that attend your services. So, I just think that everybody needs to get into your atmosphere. So, go to the littlechapelaz.org and check it out. And please donate to childhelp.org. And Sara, stay with me. I'm going to end the live stream, but we'll chat here in just a second. But thank you to everyone who's watching, and if you shared, thank you for sharing this out. And if you haven't shared, there's time for you to redeem yourself and go ahead and share this out. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Sara.
Thank you.